right, so let's talk a little bit more about this medical gaslighting of women. I was browsing on social media today, and I came across a doctor who was saying, you know, how autoimmune issues are 80% more likely or 80% of people that are diagnosed with autoimmune issues are women. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, this sounds interesting. He then went on to say, basically, kind of patronizingly, that, oh, you know, we should feel bad for people because it's about stress, and stress causes it. And so let me ask you this: if autoimmune issues are caused by stress, why is it that women are so much more stressed than men? All right, so that doesn't compute to me. It doesn't add up. And so, you know, that made me think a little bit more about, I had gone to one of my mom's doctor's appointments. She's 73 and dealing with a lot of different health issues. So I go along mostly for a second set of ears. It's not like she can't get herself to the doctor, but so I go with her for that. She comes with me to my doctor's appointments too. And one of the doctor's appointments that we went to was an endocrinologist. And we were, you know, she was describing adrenal fatigue. And because that is a factor for my mom, cortisol levels and different things like that. And so this particular doctor was a female doctor, and immediately she had a kindness about her, and she was also young. So not throwing shade on any older doctors, but I do feel like sometimes older doctors tend to stick with their old methods, and you know, and don't always evolve with the science of medicine. And so anyway, she started to talk, and she was describing what is adrenal fatigue. And you know, it's like loss of weight, loss of sleep, like a whole lot of different things. And I was like, wow, I'm like, holy cow, because some of it did not describe my mom, but it did describe me. And even though we weren't there for me, I was like, wow, you literally just described my life. And so she started to explain adrenal fatigue and how it's, you know, it's not like you're not stressing yourself out into this condition of adrenal fatigue. Adrenal fatigue happens for other reasons, maybe health-related issues, that kind of a thing, and then it makes it so that your body does not produce the cortisol needed when you are in a stressful situation. And so that's why there's this correlation between stress and adrenal fatigue. However, her point of view was more like the opposite, that the adrenal fatigue causes people to be able to react to stress less. Like they have less of an ability to react to stress. And I mean, that made sense to me, because, you know, let's back it up too. And I'll have to do another whole other story about my parents' death. So my son's dad's passed away a year and a half ago, and it was literally one of the most stressful situations I've ever dealt with in my life, because he died in another country. He died alone, and he didn't die alone, he died in a hospital. However, leading up to his death, he was very alone, and we literally, when we had to go over there, we had to find find where he had been living. He'd been living on his boat. Nobody knew where it was. Nobody knew, like, a lot of different things. So when we did find his boat, my son and I, nobody had seen the boat in the 3 weeks since he'd been admitted to the hospital. And so we found it, and it was full of blood, the evidence of him slowly dying. And I will make another story about that one. So anyway, my point being is that previously I had been going to my cardiologist because I get these weird PVCs, premature ventricular contractions, and it does seem to correlate sometimes with stress, but not all the time. More of the time it correlates with when I eat, and that's a weird thing. So which, you know, I mean, then you can ball this all up together. So why, you know, I'll avoid eating sometimes because I don't want to deal with that, and it's like, it's just this weird thing, right? So then you get weight loss involved, and it's just a weird thing. And at the time that I was going, I went through all these tests, and the cardiologist, while they could see the PVCs, they couldn't explain it. They couldn't explain, you know, there's no structural issues, da 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 da. And so they could see that it was happening. I did all these tests, and I basically got a clean bill of health. And the end result was that my doctor said, the cardiologist said, well, you know, you're too stressed, and you're bringing this on yourself. Now, this was before we went to to Denmark, where my husband had died. And so I know I'm all over the place because I have ADHD. So anyway, that being said, he had said to me, oh, I need to meditate more, I need to be less stressed. Basically, you're doing this to yourself, it's all in your head. And, you know, I have to take these heart pills sometimes that they are beta blockers, and it slows your heart rate down, and it helps the PVCs that I have. I don't take it all the time because the beta blocker also lowers your blood pressure, and I have super low blood pressure to begin with. So when I take the beta blockers, my blood pressure goes even lower, and I get super tired. So it's like this whole round robin effect. And anyway, my point is, so when we went to Denmark and we were dealing with all this blood, it was like 5 weeks of trying to deal with the funeral and everything that happened in there. I also got COVID over there, and I had to isolate. It was this really big deal. And the entire time, in the most stressful time of my life, I never had a single PVC. Not one. I didn't have to take the metoprolol not once while we were there. So that was to me like, well, hell, I never was more stressed in my life than that, and yet it clearly was not the stress that was causing my issues. And then when this doctor came on, and you know, the doctor today, and he was saying that basically women are stressed. So, you know, I don't know, I guess I'm just opening up a conversation about this because it feels like every time you go to a different doctor, they give you a different thing. One will say, oh, it's in your head. Another will say it's not in your head, but then they can't figure it out. And what I really think is the bottom line is that there's so much that we still don't know medically, and they know a lot of stuff, but they don't know a lot of stuff. And it's really frustrating when you are a woman, particularly, and everything under the sun they'll tell you is caused from stress. Acne is caused from stress. Your menstrual cycle can be affected by stress. You get autoimmune disorders because of stress. You get this because of stress, and that because of stress. But why isn't it happening to men? Are they saying that, I just don't believe this. I don't think that they've hit the nail on the head. I think that they're missing something. And I don't think it's taken seriously enough that women are getting sick and having a lot of issues, and these issues are causing stress, but I don't think the stress is causing the issues, right? Because, I mean, you could go even to acne and say, okay, well, somebody's really stressed out, so they have acne. But maybe they're really stressed out because they have acne and they have to deal with that. Or maybe they're really stressed out because they feel sick all the time, so it's not the stress that's causing the illness, it's the illness that's causing the stress. And it's, then they'll tell you, oh, you need to meditate, you need to take a anti-stress pill, you need to do this, you need to do that, and then you find out that, well, the anti-stress pill can actually cause more stress, or the antidepressant can cause more depression. So what do we do, folks? What do we do? Except for, I think that there needs to be a completely separate study for medical issues that is just completely for women. It just can't be about humans in general. There has to be a field of study, a medical study that's just women, not, even down to women's heart attacks are different than men's heart attacks. Women's heart attacks are different, and we're all lumped together. And I mean, just the fact that we have different chromosomes in our bodies is a huge factor. And I just don't think that enough is devoted to studying health issues as just purely from a female perspective. I hope I'm making some sense here, and I know, like, my thought process is all over the place on this, and I don't have any sort of medical degree at all, but I am a woman, and I've seen the women around me be medically gaslighted by both men and women in the medical community, and then some that do scratch the surface and say, hey, this is the reverse, and it is not stress that's causing this, but it is stressing you out. So, I mean, that is a conversation that I just wonder if the medical community is having, right? I think some are, but I don't think enough are. That's my take for today on that. Yeah.